You're lying in the mud of a 15th century battlefield. You've just taken a jagged iron blade to the thigh. The wound is deep, it's pulsing, and it's screaming. In the year 1450, this isn't just a painful injury, it is a countdown to your funeral. There are no hospitals, no sterile wipes, and definitely no penicillin. Every second that passes, your open flesh is being invaded by millions of microscopic killers. Under any normal law of modern medicine, you are already a dead man walking. If you keep that wound clean by medieval standards, maybe a splash of wine or a dry linen rag, you will be dead from gangrene or sepsis within a week. Your limb will turn black, your blood will turn to poison, and you will die in a fever dream. But then, peasant healer kneels beside you. She doesn't reach for a clean cloth. Instead, she pulls a panful of thick gray spiderwebs from a stable corner and a glob of moldy, rotting mud from a riverbank. She smears the filth directly into your open muscle. To a modern observer, this is a war crime. It looks like she is trying to murder you with infection. But here is the reality that will shatter everything you think you know about medicine. That moldy mud and those dusty spiderwebs are the only reason you're going to survive. How did the most disgusting, unhygienic substances on Earth become the elite survival technology of the Middle Ages? The answer is a hidden biological war that was happening 500 years before humanity even knew what a germ was. It is a story of savage ingenuity that proves the smartest people in history weren't sitting in universities, they were working in the dirt. To understand why this worked, you first have to understand the terrifying math of 15th century warfare. During the 100 Years' War or the Wars of the Roses, the sword didn't kill you, the bacteria did. Roughly 80% of battlefield casualties were caused by post-traumatic infection. A clean death was a luxury. Most men died slowly, watching their own skin rot while their immune systems collapsed. The doctors of the time, the university-trained elites, believed in humors. They thought you were sick because your blood was out of balance. Their solution? They would cut you open and drain your blood, making you even weaker and opening more paths for infection. They were literally killing the people they were trying to save. But the cunning folk, peasant healers who had been watching soldiers live and die for generations, noticed something the elites missed. They saw that wounds treated with clean dressings often festered, while wounds that were accidentally packed with moldy bread or certain types of swamp mud healed. They didn't have a name for it, but they had discovered the world's first biological weapon against infection. Let's talk about the spiderwebs first. This isn't just a crude bandage. A spiderweb is a marvel of evolutionary engineering. It is naturally loaded with vitamin K, which is the primary catalyst blood clotting. When you pack a bleeding wound with spiderwebs, the microscopic structure of the silk provides a massive surface area for platelets to hook onto. It stops the bleeding almost instantly, creating a biological seal that is tougher than any linen bandage. But that's only half the secret. Spiderwebs are naturally antimicrobial. Spiders don't want their lunch to rot while it's hanging in the web. So the silk is coated in a complex chemical soup that prevents fungi and bacteria from breaking down the protein. When you put that web into a wound, you are applying a primitive, high-strength chemical barrier that stops the first wave of infection in its tracks. It's Gnadenloser mechanisms for Gnadenloser's Heitalter. And if you want to fortify your own arsenal of survival knowledge to be just as unstoppable as these ancient healers, lock on to that subscribe button right now and crush the like button. Join the garrison before we reveal the terrifying secret hiding inside the mold, because the spider webs were just the shield. The moldy mud, that was the sword. When a 15th century healer smeared moldy bread or damp fungal mud into your wound, they were accidentally performing the world's first antibiotic injection, nearly 500 years before. Alexander Fleming discovered penicillin in a tidy London lab in 1928. Peasant healers were already using it to save lives. They understood that certain types of blue mold, the kind that grows on old rye bread, had the power to eat the infection. We now know that this mold was Penicillium glaucum. It produces a secondary metabolite that literally dissolves the cell walls of Staphylococci and Streptococci bacteria. But the mud was even more sophisticated. Soil is a biological battlefield. In every handful of river mud, there are billions of microorganisms fighting for space. To win that fight, certain soil bacteria, specifically Streptomyces, produce their own natural antibiotics to kill off competing bacteria. By packing a wound with moldy mud, the medieval healer was introducing a whole army of beneficial microorganisms that would hunt down and kill the pathogens trying to infect the soldier. It was a localized, high-stakes war of biological attrition. The healers didn't know about microbes. They just knew that the life in the mud killed the death in the wound. But there was a catch. This was a high-stakes gamble. If the healer picked the wrong mud, if they picked soil contaminated with animal waste, they weren't introducing antibiotics. They were introducing Clostridium tetani, tetanus. This is why this knowledge was so guarded. It wasn't just use any mud. It was use the mud from under the willow tree by the running water. They had identified the specific ecological niches where the good bacteria lived. They had turned the natural world into a pharmacy, categorized not by chemical formulas, but by location and smell. The real genius of 15th century survival was the realization that cleanliness as we know it, sterile, empty space, is actually a vulnerability. In a world full of pathogens, a sterile wound is an empty house waiting for a burglar. By packing the wound with spiderwebs and mold, the healers were occupying the house with a friendly army before the burglars could arrive. They used the complexity of nature to fight the complexity of disease. This is what savage ingenuity really looks like. It's not about having the best tools, it's about having the best understanding of the tools you already have. While the kings and nobles were dying in their silk-lined beds because their clean rooms had no biological defenses, the common soldier was surviving the impossible because he was covered in the very filth that contained the cure. History is gross. It's messy, it's smelly, and it's often repulsive. But it's also brilliant. The people of the 15th century weren't primitive. They were survivalists who lived on the knife edge of extinction every single day. They learned to see the salvation in the spiderweb and the medicine in the mud. They proved that sometimes the only way to save a life is to embrace the rot. So the next time you see a spiderweb in the corner of your garage, don't just think of it as a nuisance. Think of it as a 15th century trauma kit. And the next time you're told that the past was just a dark age of ignorance, remember the moldy doctors who were practicing advanced biotechnology centuries before the microscope was even a dream. If you're ready to stop looking at history through a Hollywood filter and start seeing the raw, strategic brilliance of how our ancestors actually stayed alive, you're in the right place. Don't let your knowledge of the past stay sterile. Join the ranks, hit that subscribe button, and keep your survival instincts sharp for the next time we dive into the savage ingenuity of the human story.